Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1265 of Locked on Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Monday evening into Tuesday. Thank you for joining us, as always, on the podcast. Make it your first listen each and every day. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and, of course, on the video side on YouTube. I've been very busy on the podcast already this week. Two podcasts, one on Sunday night, one on Monday morning, sort of a bonus pod. And then today, I'm turning this one around quickly. Usually, I would hold this episode till at least midnight on Tuesday or even Tuesday morning. But with the trade rumors that are out there, the draft nearing, I talked to Tyler Jones on Monday afternoon/evening and wanted to post that immediately for you. Mostly draft stuff, but certainly some touching on the rumblings around the Hawks, around Collins and Capella, etc. I'm going to have some more news catch-up episodes later in the week, so that's not necessarily on this pod, but I have stuff to touch on for sure, as well as my ultimate mock draft pick and my final thoughts on the draft. That's all coming up later on, but I want to talk to Tyler. He's, of course, a friend of the podcast, a fan favorite in this space, and we talked about an hour. So stay tuned for all of that after the intro. With myself and Tyler Jones on the draft, on the latest rumblings, and much more.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I am joined now by my friend and friend of the podcast, the voice of the Hawks fan on the show, Tyler Jones. Hello, sir. Welcome back.
What's going on, Brad? What about our Braves, man?
Oh, Lord. We're already starting here, huh? The Braves have been good. They've been good lately.
What about our boys, man? So if you're mad that the Braves lost 2 to the Cubs, it's because Brad canceled.
It's my fault. Yeah, I actually was. If you didn't say that, I was going to say it out loud. I had Tyler booked the end of last week, and I had to cancel. It was my fault, and he was gracious enough to come back. But when I did that, the Braves lost the winning streak. So I guess it's my fault. There you go.
Yep, 100%. But
they won again on Sunday, though. We're good. They're back.
Yeah, because we scheduled the
follow-up. It's true.
So I knew they were gonna get one back. Yeah, I mean, it's just nice to follow an organization that makes moves to improve the roster during the season. They were struggling early, had some defensive issues, had some lineup issues, guys weren't producing. And so they just were like, all right, we're going to make some changes. We're going to promote some guys. We're going to get my boy Billy C in the lineup more often because he's raking. And then, we're just going to win 14 games in a row because we got all the talent in the world. So it's just nice to see an organization, make quick decisions for a team that they believe in. So
no parallels here. So no, it's, obviously we are talking, as I said before I brought you in, we're talking on early evening on Monday. This is the time of year when I have to timestamp things and I can't hold anything. So this is going to post right away when we talk because I'm not trying to risk anything at this point. Deals can happen even now. They've been happening around the league and the rumblings are running wild. Our mission is to get your draft takes on the record. But before we get to the draft stuff, I have to ask you what you've been thinking about the latest. I tend to hesitate to even use the word rumor because I still think we're more in the rumbling phase than the rumor phase with regard to the Hawks and Capella and the Wolves and Collins and the Kings and Collins being super duper available, all that fun stuff. Anything that you are itching to hit on at this point? Because I know you love John, so I'm sure you're not thrilled about that.
Yeah, I mean, I just it's just kind of fascinating in general. That it appears to me what it appears to me from the outsider, like if I take a step back a bit, is that they don't feel like they want another guy, right? They want another guy on Trae Young's level, and they're willing to do anything, which includes trading their currently best basketball players on the team just to get that level of talent onto the roster because they're just not. I don't know. Like, it just feels like they're trying to upgrade. They're trying to get another star to me, they must feel really strongly about certain guys in this draft because they're really pushing this John Collins for a draft pick instead of a proven veteran player. Like, I think they want somebody on Trae Young's timeline who can take the pressure off of him as a scorer / ball handler / all that stuff while also playing good defense. Good luck finding that player in any draft. But to me, just in general, especially the John Collins, because the John Collins stuff doesn't really make sense because these trades don't upgrade the roster. And you know what, Brad? Do you remember last draft cycle when it was Cam Reddish in the news about how the Hawks wanted to trade for Cam Reddish to restart the rookie scale cycle or whatever?
Yep.
And I feel like they may be wanting to do something like that with John Collins and possibly even Kevin Huerter. I know Huerter's name has been mentioned as much, but if they're going to trade John to get a guard, I'm assuming they're going to want to clear out the guard room to give that man some rotation minutes or something. So, but beyond that, there's also Ayton stuff. There's Gobert stuff, which might be more like it's a lot of speculation on other teams' parts.
Yep.
I'm remembering that Danny Ainge is the current head honcho at Utah. So
you mean Danny Ainge might leak something?
So I'm not entirely surprised that it's the Gobert stuff. Which, as an aside, like the Gobert trading stuff doesn't make sense to me from Utah's perspective. Like the prospective deals coming the Hawks' way, like it doesn't make sense because I don't see how Capella improves their team. Or makes them demonstrably better to, trade Gobert, who's, still possibly the best defender in the NBA. When it, to me, it'd make more sense if Gobert was in like Kings rumors or stuff, but it appears the Jazz aren't willing to make that type of rebuild step to put Mitchell in with guys on the timelines. But what do you, Brad, what do you feel about all this stuff? Are you with me? Like a lot of it, I feel like I think teams do realize John is available. So of course his name's going to be out there everywhere, but do you think the Hawks are going to take like a 75% dollar deal just to move up in this draft? I mean,
yeah. So it's interesting. Obviously, trying to parse this stuff is kind of what I'm tasked with, and it's difficult because there's just a lot going on rumbling wise, a lot of reporting, and most of it, I will say some of it, because it's more interesting than other stuff for me, but most of it's not quite at the rumor level yet. It's more of the rival executives say this or league insiders say this kind of stuff. And it's like, I think that they do want to do something, no matter what Travis says on the record, which he did say on the record the other day that they're not looking to do an overhaul or whatever. I've heard the opposite across the board, that they want to do something different. And that's maybe even top down above Travis from what I hear as well.
That wouldn't surprise me. Just to cut in real quick, that is a Tony Ressler move 100%. If I don't know if Hawks fans really remember, but after the 60-win season, the Hawks had an injury-plagued similar year that they had this past year, where they only won 48 games. Got some guys regressed. They lost. I think DeMarco was still on the roster at this point, but he got hurt in the playoffs. Al Horford got suspended, and they got swept by the Cavs in a showing in which they couldn't grab a contested rebound. Tristan Thompson really dominated that series. And Ressler, it was his first year as the full-time owner, had decided that he wanted to shake things up and change things. So out goes Al Horford, and in comes Dwight Howard. And then, the worst year and the worst viewing Hawks season ever.
Yeah, that might be a good reminder for Hawks fans of the just impetus to just do something. That doesn't always work. It can work, but it doesn't always work. And that's kind of what it feels like in some ways. And look, the John stuff is getting louder, and I know you don't like that, and I don't like it either, honestly, for the most part.
Brad, I made my peace. I made my peace with this. They've been wanting to trade him. They didn't want to pay him, and nothing's really changed in that regard. And to me, if his role is going to be if they're going to pigeonhole him into being Al Horford, offensively, then I'd rather watch him go somewhere else where he'd be featured as an offensive weapon. And I think internally the Hawks made the decision very early in Collins' career where they were like, he's not going to be the number 2 option on this team, but that's probably his ideal. That's the role that he wants, and that's probably his best role as a basketball player overall. And we're not going to build our team around that. Because they've had real opportunities. I go back even to after Trae Young's rookie year when they had a bundles of cap space and they could have spent it on somebody like Brook Lopez And instead, they kind of just held on to the cap space, and they ended up using it on Danilo Gallinari and Bogdan Bogdanovic, which, ended up working because, again, this team did make the conference finals. But, at the same time, they also signed guys over Kevin Huerter and John Collins. Like, that's the reality. And that's the reality of how the team is built right now, where you've got two good start. Well, as an aside, I don't know if Gallinari's even starter caliber. I don't think Gallinari started caliber.
Not anymore. He was, but not anymore.
Yeah, and so but at the time they signed him, he was that, and then they signed Bogdan Bogdanovic to, give Kevin Huerter a push, which ended up working. Like, Huerter became a better basketball player. I felt like in large part because he had competition for minutes, and it forced him to play harder consistently, particularly on the defensive end of the floor. But I can feel like the Hawks internally from their guys, they're like, we kind of just want more athleticism on the perimeter, more physicality, better defenders, and also, like, I do think there might be something where they don't want what John Collins gives them at the power forward. They kind of want more of the Draymond Green mode, if that makes sense, or more of a distributor, ball handler, a guy who can grab and go and create easy offense for his teammates in transition, whereas John is purely he's a scorer first type basketball player. Like, his best skill is scoring in the NBA. And they feel like they don't need that from him. So they kind of push him to be, still a very good basketball player, but probably not the best that he can be. And so I can understand both sides, but, like, I think where I'm confused, this goes to, like, maybe luxury tax concerns, but even then, like, some of these deals don't make sense if they're trying to save money. Like, I'm kind of confused why they're selling. Like, it feels like to me, Brad, they're selling low to sell low and just to change things because, like, they want to make a change. And I'm guessing they want to take a risk on one of these guys in the draft who I think can be really good, but especially next to Trae Young could be really good. But, like, there's no sure things in this draft class. Like, they're not trading up for Jason Tatum. Like, that guy's not. I don't think that caliber of basketball player is even going number one overall. But there are some good basketball players that could help long term. But in the short term, I think it purely the John Collins stuff. I can't talk about the Aiden and the Gobert because I don't know. Like, the Aiden stuff could be coming from his agent, could be coming from the Suns because they really want Capella. Like, there's just a lot of noise in regards to the other centers that really don't make that much sense to me since they drafted a Okongwu 6 and they're really high on him. So it's going to be interesting what happens. I'm kind of excited to see what they do, but like I said, like when they drafted a Okongwu and then signed Gallinari, like you were the one talking like, hey, Collins might be gone, and like that was the impetus. They never really came close to that contract extension where they wanted him to sign for 90 over 4 or something like that. But I don't know. It's complicated. It's weird. I'm not that big of a fan. It kind of feels like but I can see, like, if you take a step back and take your fan side out of it, I can see like, hey, we want to take more of a risk on a guard type player than have Collins taking up $25 million of the salary cap. But I still don't. I don't know. Like, this draft, like, again, we're eventually going to talk about these guys, and I do like them. I like them a lot, but I mean, it's just a gamble, and I guess they're willing to make it.
Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. If you're looking for a daily fantasy option this year, check out the award-winning app at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. I love it, and I know that you will too. It's so very easy to use, both interface-wise and also just the operation of the actual game. All you have to do is pick 2 to 5 players and over-under on their projections. Win up to 10 times on any entry. It's just you against those projected numbers, and that makes it very easy to also decipher what's going on. And the entry can be made very quickly, just a minute or less, and they have safe, fast withdrawals from PrizePicks, and they have props on almost everything you can possibly think of. That includes points, rebounds, and even assists on the basketball side. And beyond that, they have mixed sports entries. So if you like MMA or soccer or baseball or hockey, whatever you like to sort of check out in the sports world, pair it all together and use your expertise all at the same time. And for a limited time, PrizePicks has an exclusive offer for all our listeners for Locked On, and that is $50 for free if a single player in your lineup has even a single point. But you have to use the promo code NBA at PrizePicks. One more time, exclusively for Locked On fans. Sign up today. Use the promo code NBA. $50 for free if a player in your first lineup scores even a single point. Check it all out at PrizePicks. I want to go to the draft now, sort of as a bridge. So, we could exhaust the rumor stuff, but we don't need to keep doing that. I think we're on the same page for the most part on what they could do. It's still, as we're talking, still a little bit early for specifics. But one of the scenarios, of course, is to either trade up into the late lottery, mid-late lottery, or to use Collins to do that. And I'm going to put that to the side. But you talk about the guys at this draft. So I'll just open it up. There are a bunch of guys who I think the Hawks probably have to either move up to get or use another way to get them. They're not going to be available at 16. And one of those popular notions is that Portland pick at 7 or whatever else. Is there anybody, I know you've been looking at these guys, is there anybody in that kind of mid-late lottery range that you tend to like and want to if they were going to go, if they were going to do something, because again, it's a big if, would you be all over any of these guys? Are you a Dyson Daniels fan? Are you an AJ Griffin fan? Do you like any of these guys?
Yeah, Chet Holmgren. They should trade up to get him.
Other than Chet Holmgren, who would take Collins and a lot more probably to get him. So
I mean, that's the type of if I'm going to trade Collins, that's the type of deal that I'm going to make. Pair him next to a Congo. That's a building block of doing something.
You heard it here first. Honestly, I think we could probably take it. We won't do this, but I wonder what it would take. It would probably be like Collins and
no
3
team
picks.
Would do it. No
Collins and 3 picks probably.
It's one of those. It's one of those Paul George for 4 first-round draft picks that the Pacers
that no team does. Yeah,
exactly. No teams do these trades in the NBA at least. They're probably not going to do that. So other than that, I am a Dyson Daniels guy. I like him a lot.
Me too.
He's I don't know. I just like the Mike Schmidt's interviews. They're sadly going to go away because he got hired by Portland. But he had a fun interview where he was talking to Mike, and he was talking about stuff like chest blows while guarding people and all that stuff. That man understands defense in a way that is surprising for young basketball players to understand.
Yep.
He's going to be a really good defender. He might already be a really good defender in the NBA, in the NBA perspective right now. He was really good for G. The G League is a good league, and he was just take all the other stuff aside. He was a good basketball player in a good league last year. He was objectively probably the most productive player on that G League team, and probably the best. Just pure hey, this guy is helping our team win the most. He's probably number one over the past 2 years, even more than even Jalen Green or Jonathan Kuminga. It doesn't say he has more upside than those two, but kind of he has a real understanding of the game, a high steals guy, good competitor. He'll challenge shots at the rim, and to me it looks like he's got the frame to get even bigger and stronger and more athletic. Of course, the questions is the jump shot, which I mean, it looks fine to me, but you see it is kind of a slow release. He talks about how he's trying to speed it up, but he's probably never going to be a pure knockdown shooter guy, but he has a lot of other tools, good passer. The biggest weakness as I see is strength. He doesn't really finish through contact or go through contact, but I like the building blocks for him. So that's a guy, but
he's very thin. But other than that,
yeah, but he's thin in he's young way. He's got the unlike Kevin Huerter. I don't know if Huerter will ever be bigger than what he is right now.
Yeah, I think he's more wiry.
Yeah,
is what I would say. It's not like he's super weak either. He defends physically for someone who is as young as he is, and also I think he's the son of a former pro basketball player. He kind of, to your point about him getting in the game, he definitely feels the game and plays the game in a way that he understands what's going on. And the G League Ignite was not a great system for him, and I think that's probably a good thing overall. They probably forced him to do some other stuff, but in theory, the G League Ignite is not the greatest development system for someone of his skill set. That's more of an on-ball ball kind of, and obviously he can do a little bit of on-ball stuff as well. But I think the theory would be, as someone who likes Daniels and maybe from the Hawks perspective, would be like he gives you that secondary career that they've been wanting for a while, and he can also play defense. That's the theory.
The only downside is I'm not sure he's going to give. I don't know if he'll ever be the scorer. Like I don't know.
I don't think he will. I think he'll be okay at that.
Yeah, I think he has. I think he, like to me, I think he's. I think Kevin Huerter, but like just stouter defensively is a good outcome for him.
And a worse shooter, probably. I mean, obviously Huerter's a really good shooter, but more dynamic in transition. Where I think there is some upside appeal to him in transition. Like I mean, just in general, like overall, I really like him as a basketball player. I think he can step in day one and be a good rotation player for the Hawks. Other guys, like also, I really like Johnny Davis too. I don't know how he rates like physically or like how athletic he is or what that, but he's super physical on both ends of the floor. And like he's a good scorer. And I was really impressed by both his high usage rates and his ability to play good defense throughout the year for Wisconsin. So, I mean, he's another guy, but like, I mean, it just goes to that thing. Like, is Dyson Daniels or Johnny Davis or Ben Mathurin, who I also like, there's nobody in this draft I don't like. Like, even somebody like AJ Griffin, who didn't show much really at Duke outside of catch and shoot. Like, I'd get it if the Hawks were to trade up in a vacuum to get him. Just because he's so young and he's such a good shooter already, like you're hoping that he can develop the other tools. But I mean, John Collins is a lot to give up for these. Well, yeah, I mean that's what it comes down to. It's like it's really, and this is what I'm saying for a long time. Not to do the whole Collins thing again, but like for me, I like these guys too. But this is not the sweet spot of this draft. Like this is a clear top 3 or 4, depending on what you think about those guys. And then it's very flat from there. And generally speaking, you don't want to be going up in a flat draft. That's not what you want to do, like as a theory. Now, on the other side, you have a president of basketball operations in Travis, who does not tend to care about value. Like he might just like a guy and go get him. That's kind of the way he thinks. And that's a philosophy thing. But yeah, I'm kind of with you that like, not that they're all the same, but they're all similarly like graded out for me overall. Like you can have your preferences with Daniels or Mathurin. If you liked AJ Griffin's high school tape, you might still have him there because I think his upside's still like kind of untapped, but he's also a little bit less athletic than he used to be. I don't know. Like there's not a guy that I am just like salivating over to.
What about Shaedon Sharpe? Right.
Well, Shaedon Sharpe is the ultimate wild card. And for me, it would be very hard for the Hawks in their current position when they want to win to mortgage assets to go get Shaedon Sharpe.
But hold on, do they want to win? They want to win?
Okay, that's a question. Obviously, they
had options. Like they had options to improve the roster at the deadline, and they chose not to do anything.
They did not, and I think here's the thing. I think it's fair to question like how much push they're going to do in terms of spending and all that stuff to win now. But when you have Trae Young on your team, you have to try to win, because if you don't try to win, he's going to be mad about that. Like you should already be now in keep Trae Young happy mode.
Okay. And they would have kept, like, here's my thing. They would have kept Trae Young happy if after his rookie year, they tried to win. Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it resets a little bit when you give him the max and the player option and all that stuff. But I think they can't really afford to take a big step back. And listen, no matter what happens, if they were to trade John for a draft pick, that is a step back in the short term. I don't care what you think about that deal overall. You and I are less excited about it overall. But even if you like that trade for the Hawks, whoever they get at 6, 7, 5, whoever is worse than John Collins by a lot in the short term. Like, that's just what it is. So know that going in.
And like, I mean, that's the other thing is like, I mean, I like guys in this draft. Like I like Tari Eason a lot. Like I think and
he's the first guy we talked about that might be there at 16. Like he might get to the Hawks anyway.
Or Jeremy Sohan at like he might fall. Like I think somebody's gonna fall, but if they're keyed in on a guy, it's just interesting to see who that guy is and like are they really willing to take a bad deal to get him?
Well,
Like,
and I think the answer is yes to that last part. We've seen. I mean, all respect to Travis, he's done some bad deals value wise for guys he wanted. That's just he's not unwilling to do that. I think we've seen that. The problem is,
but there's a difference. There's a difference in bad deals, as in I'm giving up draft capital of guys I don't know who are going to pan out,
versus John.
versus
it is different. It is
a
different.
legitimate two-way basketball player who has all-star upside still. Like,
And I think that basically what you have to. And there's also the curveball of like these deals are being talked about. Let's just use Portland as the example because that's the one that's been reported on. You can't, if you have a guy you want, you can't make that deal until you're on the clock.
Yeah,
At 7, because that guy could be gone at 6. Like if it's Ben Mathurin or it's whoever, if it's Dyson Daniels, they might go 6, and then you have to reset everything. Which is why it's so early, even though it's draft week. It's early to do this for draft picks in particular because you don't know who's going to be there. Like you just can't know that. Today's show is brought to you by Rock Auto. The auto world, as it makes models these days, it's basically impossible for all the local chain stores or any of the local chain stores or dealerships or anything like that to stock all the parts that you need for your car or your truck. And if they have them, you actually want to endure all the question from the person behind the counter. All they want to do is tell you what they want to sell you from their warehouse or whatever makes them the most money. Instead, act on your own behalf by accessing rockauto.com right now at home or in your pocket. It's a much, much better option overall. Why spend more for the exact same parts at a dealership or a local chain store? Instead, use rockauto.com for the lowest prices available. And it's a family business that have been serving customers for more than 2 decades at this point, and the prices are reliably low and the same for each and every customer. They have all of what you need for your car or your truck. That includes, of course, stuff like brake parts and tail lamps, motor oil, even carpet for your car. And check out the website right now at rockauto.com today. See all the parts available for your car or your truck. And when you get there, write Locked On in the box that asks you how you heard about rockauto.com, so they know that we actually sent you to them. Amazing selection, reliable low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com.
let me ask you, what do you think about the Jaden Ivey at 4? Because I'm of two minds, right? On one hand, like I do think based on, because I don't know if you read Landry Fields' interview stuff from Kershaw on The Athletic or whatever, but I did notice that one thing they did point out is they want another guy. They want somebody to take the pressure off of Trae Young as a ball handler.
Yeah, they've been saying that every availability or anything off the record. That is all the whole time.
Like, to me, I feel like more than anything else, that is the thing. That's why I say Dyson Daniels, because I do think, like,
it's funny.
I think he's legitimate a point guard.
Well, that's what he played in Australia, especially. And look, the funny thing is, you say that. I mean, and I agree that they've been talking about that for a long time to ease that burden from Trae. But at the same time, they also talk about defense every time they do an interview. And like those two things are not usually going to be the same. Like
exactly
with Daniels, and there was somebody report, I think it was Jake Fisher reported that Daniels was the guy they wanted. He is the only guy that does both of those things in the class in terms of that range. Now there are guys who are 2A players, but in terms of like actually having the ball in their hands and projecting as a plus defender, I don't think that Mathurin really does that. I think he's obviously a good player too, but he's less of a plus defender prospect than Daniels is. Griffin was a bad defender in college. So like if you're just saying, and maybe this is why Daniels has been rumored, if you're just saying, look, who's the only guy in that range that actually could be a secondary ball handler and a good defender, that's Dyson Daniels. So that might be what it is. I don't know.
I mean, I'd be in, and that's where I go back with Ivy, where it's funny that he had this breakout year, but I think I liked Ivy a lot more his freshman year. It's funny to sound freshman year / his what he did for the USA under-19 team. I think he played alongside Cade and that group, like, because he was a much better defender.
Well, and that'll be what he is. I mean, if you figure it for the Hawks, there's already the ease burden offensively for him if he's with the Hawks. Like, yeah. And listen, I think that is extremely unlikely to happen. Like, could it happen? Sure. But it doesn't seem like there's any smoke on that at all. Even the reporting that I talked about on the bonus pod on Monday, it was like the Kings want Collins but don't want to trade for, and it's like, all right, well, they don't want to trade for, and that's the pick that would have to be Jaden Ivey, because I think if he gets to 5, the Pistons just take him. So it's not really going to matter, I don't think. I know that was the Andrew Kelly special early in the process too, but I think Ivy is one of those, like, yeah, maybe they could throw every asset in the book at him, but I can't expect that to be like a thing that actually happens. I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm not the biggest fan of Ivy's game. I mean I get the appeal, but I think his best position is point guard. I'm not sure if he's ever going to be a good enough shooter to be consistently off the ball, which is what he would be for the Hawks, which is why, I can see them in their eyes valuing the guys we talked about more. Like I think there's a bit more upside than we talked about with Ben Mathurin. I don't know if I talked about him that much. I do like his shooting stroke.
No, he has a
He's got
great shooting stroke.
and he's very athletic and he's a strong finisher at the rim where he's going to try to dunk on people. And like, that's something the Hawks haven't had on the perimeter.
I think actually, just to build on that, I haven't talked about him a lot on the pod recently. I think of the guys in that range, he is. This is going to sound derogatory, and I don't mean it that way. I think he's the safest guy of all of them.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be good. Now, the thing is, I don't know if his upside is quite as high as some of the other guys. I think defensively, he's just okay rather than great. But like the combination of his shooting, his IQ, his defense. Like, he's a really intriguing guy that I've always liked. I had him in the top 20 last year before he withdrew. Like, I liked him last year a lot. I still do now, but I don't know. He's also a little bit similar to what they have already.
Yeah, that's the problem.
So I mean, listen, I think his upside is higher than either of the guys they have now, but he is a little bit duplicative, you would say, of the Herter Bogdanovich duo. Listen, you don't not draft the guy because of that. If you love him, you go out and get him. I'm just saying, like, I don't know. This is going to be very, very simplistic, and I don't mean it that way. But like Daniels is like the theoretical defense plus ball handling guy. Mathurin is more of like plug and play in a good way, kind of shooting guard prospect. And then like AJ Griffin is like he's the best shooter maybe of the three, but also it has like the weird track record where he was the number one guy in their class. He had 2 injuries. He doesn't play defense anymore, but maybe he can in the future. I don't know. They're all different players, but I do think Mathurin, if they wanted to both be safe and aggressive at the same time, would be the guy. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, but that just goes back to the thing where I'm like, these are good prospects to have.
Yeah.
And I think they can end up developing into good starters, good role players, but star? I don't know. Like,
yeah, I mean, honestly,
and that's the thing is like, okay, we're going to trade roughly top 60, top 70 basketball player in the NBA who's not 25 yet. For another Kevin Herter, Bogdanovich type, which I mean, again, they're good basketball players,
and that's been a theory of mine forever. I mean, you know that you said it a million times, but I am not a fan, generally speaking, in a vacuum, of trading up for non-stars, and that's what this probably would be. Now, there is some way that who pick your guy, Shaedon Sharpe, Dyson Daniels, AJ Griffin. There is some way those guys become stars, not like super duper stars, but stars. That's not impossible. But I think you have to think those guys are going to be stars to do this kind of move, at least fringe stars. Like the Hunter thing was, they gave up a star level package for a non-star prospect, and that's what you don't want to do.
Brad, they think Hunter is a star.
I know they do. I'm just saying from the outside perspective. And I liked Hunter in that draft, all that fun stuff. But like, I think there was not really a likelihood for him to actually be an offensive star. Like maybe the 2-way equity would take you there. And that's the same thing I feel about these guys. It's not even about these guys being bad. They're all good prospects. They're all appropriately rated in this class. But like, with the exception of Shaedon Sharpe, who would obviously be an upside swing, because that's the whole thing about him, is that he's supposed to be an upside swing. And he's obviously the floor is a lot lower. I think, especially with regard to Mathurin and Daniels, those guys are like, you're hoping they're going to be top 50-ish players in the league. Like, you're hoping for that at the high end. And that's good player. That's a good player, but that player is like what Collins is right now. So basically what you have to believe is they unlock something else about your roster, which they might. And importantly, they are cheaper and under control for longer.
Yeah. And that goes back to my, restart the cycle. They don't want to pay. I think something that is clear from everything is that they don't like paying John Collins $25 million a season.
They don't seem to want to do that. No.
And I think you can probably add Herter into the mix where they don't like that they're paying Herter $15 million.
What's funny, because that was the one they did a year early, and they knew already. I mean, that was and I think that one's even more. I mean, you and I like Collins a lot. I get that. I think the Herter deal is like, you don't do it a year early if you don't like that deal. You know what I mean?
I think they both like it and would prefer that Herter still be on a rookie deal.
Well, yeah,
right.
That was part of the problem.
Brad, to me, they just don't want to pay money. Like they don't want to pay real salary.
No,
until they have another guy on this roster,
and that's
like
where
that's
honestly,
flat out the thing. Like they don't want to pay another guy until they have another Trae Young type basketball player on this team.
It seems like that might be the case. And listen, they also have the curveball, which maybe is part of this as well. Of Bogey has another injury, and he's not getting any younger, and he's got 2 more years left, and like he is tradable, but teams know he's hurt again. So like, if you needed to do something, he's not as easily movable as he was, you would think. I mean, he's still movable, but it's just, I mean, yeah, I think I think they made the bed a couple years ago of kind of aligning all of these contracts, how they were. And now that they're actually going to all become paid properly, they're realizing that they're not good enough to go 20 million into the tax, which they would have to do to keep them all together. And they're not going to do that. So that's really maybe even the inciting incident of all of this is that they look at the books now. If you're Tony and you say, okay, for me to make this team the best it can be without trading anybody, you're into the tax. Like bringing back the lawn, finding a mid-level guy to play behind John, like you're in the tax at that point with this team that was the 8 seed last year. And they're not going to do that. So that's, I mean, I know people don't love to talk about the financials and the tax and all that stuff. And it's not my favorite thing either, but I promise you it matters. I promise you Tony is not going to pay the tax unless he thinks they're going to be awesome. And he's not convinced.
And this conversation is why the Warriors are going to continue to win.
Because they don't care.
They don't care. And like
Clippers too. Clippers do the same thing.
The Hawks can pay the tax and still find that another player. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, still find that Trae Young type of elite top 15, top 10 basketball player while paying the tax, while keeping a lot of these, good role players, or, they consider role players plus starters on the books like the Warriors did. There's no team in the NBA, like people gave Windhurst a lot of crap for it, but it's true. No team in the NBA would have paid as much luxury tax money as the Warriors did while being the worst teams in the NBA 2 years in a row. No team would have done that.
It mattered. And listen, you can't expect everybody to do that. And I get that. But
Brett, look how deep their team is. Like, that's what won them the title.
Listen, I mean,
the Celtics, I think the Celtics were the best team in the NBA this year because they made, shout out to Brad Stevens for making moves and making decisions, believing in his young talent.
They had depth.
But what the Celtics didn't have was a bunch of guys. Like
they had 7 guys, basically.
Like the Warriors throwing out Gary Payton, Otto Porter Jr., like Andrew Wiggins getting this resurgence when he's really not that different of a basketball player. He's just more committed to playing defense. And like it's amazing how much better people look at Wiggins when he's still like a relatively inconsistent shooter and scorer. Like he's really not that much better than what Harrison Barnes is right now. Like they might honestly be the same caliber basketball player, but and they're paying him $30 million to be DeMarre Carroll basically. But hey, DeMarre Carroll's a good basketball player, and if you don't care about money, then pay and overpay for these.
And I'm listening as a fan, which I'm not. It's not how I'm operating anymore. But as a fan, I always think you should not be defending / encouraging your ownership to avoid the luxury tax. You should not care. You should want them to do the best possible thing for the basketball team. And that now, generally speaking, would be to pay the tax because you're already there.
And here's my bigger, like, even beyond like this roster. The biggest issue the Hawks have right now is that Tony Ressler is too invested in this team, both financially and as a fan. Like he's a true fan of this team.
Yeah, you need
cares a lot.
Yeah.
But he also doesn't want to pay. Like, I mean, that's a good thing in one sense, but it's not so good in the sense that he's always looking to make headlines. He's always looking to get his team's name out there.
He's also involved. He's involved. He's involved.
Super involved
which is his right. He owns the team. He paid for the team. He can do whatever he wants. But I think in general, personally, this is my opinion. I would not want my owner being super involved in basketball decisions. That's me. As a fan of a team or an observer of a team in a vacuum, what you want is Steve Ballmer. You want the guy who will pay whatever it takes and who will leave you alone. And that's not Tony Ressler. Like, it matters that he cares to win. I think he does. I think he does want to win. That does matter. But like, he's also, and the people think I'm making this up. He's been, I can't share all of it anyway, but some of this has been publicly reported. He has put his thumb on the scale multiple times on transactions. This is not even me. Just like, this is not a mystery. This is full on happened.
This goes back to the Trae Young, Luka.
It goes before that.
Deal. Like
before
even
that, Paul Millsap,
the Dwight Howard, Al Horford stuff, Paul Millsap too. Like all this,
he literally admitted on the record that he was the one that nixed a Paul Millsap trade. And listen, you can argue the impact of that wasn't as big as people. Regardless, he said it. He admitted it on the record that he said no to a deal that would have made them better long term. It just would have. And then, yeah, we can argue about who was behind the Luka trade or the Dwight Howard acquisition. It's always a mixture behind the scenes, and there's always stuff that I've heard that I can't say out loud. But no matter what, Tony is active, and he's admitted this. He's active in personnel decisions. Travis is the guy, but Tony's signing off, and if he's signing off, or more than signing off,
but he's signing off like to me, like his investment, like him wanting to win this much while also being financially solvent for an organization, like he wants to be
it's hard
in
to do
the
both.
black.
Yeah.
Which I mean, he still would be making the organization wouldn't be making, like he's very much like Brad. He's very much a finance guy. Like he is. This is why he's selling draft picks, because he's getting real money to pump into his books to show that they had a good year. Like he's very much quarter by quarter. He's a quarter by quarter type of guy, financial quarter.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too super.
No, it's okay. We'll move on from this. I just thought it was
like,
it's interesting. It sort of informs everything, because no matter what, I will be convinced. I've said this before. If they were to, in a vacuum, trade Collins for a draft pick, part of that will be financially motivated. I promise you that. That is a factor that is on the table in any move like that. Or Capella, same thing with Capella. If they were to move Capella for a pick or something, they're gonna save money on that transaction on purpose. So like, it is what it is. I'm not gonna change anything. Neither are you. But it's an under discussed thing that people get mad at me about. And I'm not. Listen, Tony Ressler makes the Atlanta Spirit Group put to shame. Like the Hawks are in a much better place now than they were when I was a fan of the team growing up and in college and all that stuff. This is a much, much better place. That could also be he's a little bit more involved than I would want at this point in time, and I'm not sure he wants to pay the tax. That's okay. I mean, it is what it is. All right, we've done a lot on that. I want to make sure before we get out of here, what you like, anybody else that you like in the draft, because let's just say they don't move up or they keep 16 or whatever. Anybody you like or don't like? Like you mentioned Eason already as a guy that might be. Sohan, I think, is going to be gone, but he could be around, I guess, if he slips like Jalen did.
Yeah, Eason, just because like I really like his intensity level. He's a pure, like I think he's also a purely instinctual basketball player, which is something that it's funny. Like he's kind of the opposite of DeAndre Hunter, who's super robotic and methodical. Like Eason kind of goes on feel, and that can burn you a bit. But like I do think he'd give this Hawks team something they don't have, right? Which is like like high level intensity on really both ends of the floor, and like super physical type of guy. Other than Eason, I mean it's a lot of guys like I like Jalen Williams. I like both Jalen Williams in fact. But like Santa Clara Jalen Williams at 16, I like him. The only real downside to his game is I wonder why he wasn't better. Like he should have been. He was good in college, but I feel like based on the tools that he has, like he probably should have been a bit more dominant. That might have to deal with his athleticism, but he did test well in the combine. So
yeah, it
might be something where he's starting to That's the thing with young guys. You kind of don't know when they stop growing or they stop, maturing physically. So he might just start be filling out into his body. But that's somebody I like. I like his feel for the game.
He is very schlanky.
Yeah.
Like dribble pass shoots, super skilled. Like I don't know if Travis likes him or not, but knowing what I know about Travis's and what he values, Jalen Williams does all those things that Travis values.
Do you remember Lamar Patterson?
Very, very well. Yes.
Yeah, he kind of reminds I think he's just more athletic, flat out.
He is, but yes, he's and a better
kind
shooter.
of the same type of like super nice feel for the game type of basketball player.
Yeah,
it was a like very good passer too, like very good.
Oh, very yeah. Basically, if Lamar Patterson was more athletic, he would have been a guy I loved, and he was still an interesting prospect. But yeah, no, honestly, he's not that similar to Kevin Huerter, but a lot of the reasons why Travis was drawn to Kevin Huerter are present in Jalen Williams.
Yeah,
and they're similar. They're similar size as well. So, but the funny thing is, he's probably a shooting guard. He's pretty long, so maybe he can play some three. But just an interesting. He's shooting guard height and weight. So we'll see. But no, he's a guy I like a lot. I think that maybe you're worried about athleticism just a touch, but he would definitely be on my radar at 16, particularly if Eason was gone. I have Eason a touch higher, but those guys are pretty close together for me. I'm trying to think of who else I should ask you about. Ochai Baji. Where are you at on that? Because that's a popular Hawks fan guy that people like.
He can shoot it. I mean, I saw the few games I saw in the tournament, which was basically the Duke UNC game. Which what a game!
Your Tar Heels.
That was the title. That was the championship. And then I saw the national championship where somebody won. It didn't matter. But
not your Tar Heels. I was there.
Yeah, but he can shoot it. But I don't know that much about him. I in general, I always prefer younger basketball players in the draft. Even though like Tari Eason's 21 right now, but he was super productive. Like he was.
Yeah,
outside of Keegan Murray, who would also like honestly, if the Hawks were to be like, hey, we want to trade John Collins for Keegan Murray. That's a guy like he.
Oh wow!
Like
look at you.
To me, if you're going, it's like, all right, we want to reset the clock. We're just going to trade different John Collins because I think his game, like the way he gets his points, how efficient he is, how he's good on both ends. Like I don't think he's going to be. I don't know if he has the athletic upside that Collins still does, but like I like him a lot. And that would actually be a position for position type of switch where I think Keegan's a power forward. He has more ball skills than John, but like I say, he's not the athlete that John is. But like, yeah, that would be interesting. But like, other than Keegan Murray in college, and Chet Holmgren, who's in the conversation,
your guy Chet.
Tari Eason was super productive, but he is 21 years old. But like,
I knew you were gonna like him. I don't know why I knew that, but I knew you were gonna like him.
I mean, he plays. I mean, he's a roughneck kind of guy. Like,
well, yeah, he would get.
And the Hawks need.
I was going to say
that type of aggression.
This is one of your things that you said, and I think you're right about this. The Hawks don't have, and honestly, a lot of that is because of what Schlenk values. Schlenk is a finesse guy. He's a skill guy, and it comes from that Warrior system where the Warriors were kind of valuing the same things, other than maybe Draymond. But like Tari Eason is the opposite in a lot of ways. Like he's a physical, stock creating, rebounding bludgeoner of a prospect. And that's not a Hawks thing usually.
And this is my concern with trading John Collins beyond just that we're losing a good basketball player. The Hawks are not a super physical basketball team outside of what John brings them on both ends of the floor. Like just that high level of physicality. Like we can talk about the skill and all that stuff. And like, can he pass? Can he dribble? Like they don't, or him and Onyeka Okongwu, who we can talk about him on another pod, but like these guys are kind of by the book basketball players. Outside of Trae Young, Trae Young's a different category, but like everybody else is they kind of do their thing and they don't really look to generate, make wild plays, like try to dunk on people. They're all a bunch of guys who play basketball the right way, and they except for in certain situations when Bogey like that's what makes Bogey so valuable for this team as well. Is that he'll break the offense, break the mold, and try to remix and do stuff on his own, which ultimately frees up opportunities for everybody else on the team. So, and I find my pull to Easton to be like he would really bring bring something to the table that this team really needs and doesn't have at the moment. But other than Ethan, Malachi Branham would be interesting. But it's purely on like again, he's kind of like to me, he's kind of in the AJ Griffin mode where I think he can shoot it, but I'm not sure he can do anything else. One thing I did notice that Ohio State sets a lot of moving screens around the rim. I'm pretty sure you noticed that.
Of course.
And it's like he got a lot of easy driving lanes, and that's just not going to happen. I don't know if he has the dribble package, but at 16, on a pure talent play, like I got no problem with it. But yeah, it's kind of more in that mode, right? It's kind of in the in that type of mode. Like there's Dylan Terry, there's David Roddy at 44 potentially, though he's getting first round pick buzz now, which I knew was going to happen. But
yeah, he's 30 for ESPN. I saw today.
I mean, yeah, because again,
he's coming.
Physical guy who likes to dunk on people, who's also skilled. I think teams like that, and they should. But it's a flat draft though. Like and I think that's my overall point. Where I'm like, hey, there's a lot of guys. Like the only guys I don't like. Who are guys I don't? How about this, Brad? Who are guys you don't like?
This is hard. Yeah, I was actually.
How about
say
this?
Before we get out of here, like I'll probably share a few more.
Remember last draft, like there were a bunch of guys people didn't like.
Yeah, I have a hard time with a couple picks, but they're not even crazy. I mean, like for me, like I would not be in love with taking Jovic at 16. Just because the defense is so bad. I am not the biggest Jaden Hardy guy, but at least I can see it. I mean, I understand why people like him. And those are both like top 25 guys, generally speaking. I mean, that's kind of it. Other guys who are like widely mocked in the top 22, 23 picks. I mean, the centers I wouldn't take without another plan in place. Like you kind of can't take Mark Williams without knowing Capella's traded, basically. Or Kennedy Chandler, I actually like. They just can't take him because he's a pure point guard size guy, and you can't use that pick on that player. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the problem is that like people ask me this offline too, like who would you be mad if they took? And it's like I don't really have a guy that I would like lose my mind.
Take the Hawks out of it though. I mean like just in general, like these prospects. Who's a guy you don't like as a prospect? Because I mean
there aren't that many, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a big I'm trying to look at the board now. I'm probably a touch lower on Keegan Murray than most people is, but even that he's a good prospect. I don't think of him as a top 5 guy in this class. Yeah, I don't really think that I'm like super out on anybody. I mean, maybe Walker Kessler. I don't buy it at all.
Oh man.
I mean, he's just all it is like he's just a backup center. That's what he is. I mean, he's fine if you want to take that guy at 25. It's not that big of a deal. But like, I know that's a former Tar Heel, but he is he's a backup center, isn't he? I mean, that's what he seems to be for me.
I mean, I think he's a specialist, right? But I think he's a good
it's fine.
I also think teams need teams. Yeah. Every team needs a guy who's just gonna come in, protect the rim, and make lob dunks. Like
at that range, it's totally fine too. Like if you're taking him at like 15, then that's too high. But like if he goes where he's supposed to go, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, I don't know. I'm probably a little lower on Malachi Branham like you are. That's probably the guy that I'm probably disposed not to like, not because of Ohio State, but because the defense is so bad. Like he's so bad defensively. It is like jarringly bad. And he's limited athletically too. So like maybe that's the guy. But even then, if you're 16, he's mocked at like 10. Like if you're 16 and you're the Hawks, then like he's pretty schlanky too. Like, I don't know. They got lots of guys that are available to them that are pretty interesting. So I don't know. Flat draft, but not a bad draft is what I'll say.
Yeah, I think that's my viewpoint, which is why, trading back would be an option.
I would certainly sign up for that. I think it's always unpopular with fans to trade back.
And this is my wrestler point. Like, wrestler is a fan, so they're not going to trade back. Like I think he's
Fair.
like I really do think he's too invested emotionally in this team where he gets super disappointed on stuff that like this Hawks season, like we talk about all the time. Injuries played a major role. Like these guys weren't healthy to start the year, and they had their backs against the wall like in December because of it. So I don't know. I feel like what the Hawks are going to do this offseason reeks of deck chair moving, where they're just gonna they like they just want different guys in different roles to see how it looks. But I guess it's going to depend on what they do overall.
Yeah, for sure.
Last thing before we go, because like I just want to get your who's your favorite number one prospect guy in this draft? Because I've heard a couple draft pods. You kind of go back and forth.
That's how I still am. You're not gonna get a great answer from me. If it was today, my number one is Chet today. I think that's gonna stay but I think that's the gap's not huge. I think I would have Chet number one. But I also think that it's understandable to not have Chet number one, if that makes sense. Like, there's not a guy in this draft that I'm like convinced is a superstar. They're just not. So like,
Brett. So I'll ask this for the Magic fans out there. Are they? What are they going to do about the fact that they got all these combo forwards? But like, why not try Jaden Ivey?
I would honestly. I am not like the biggest Jaden Ivey guy, and I still would think that was like a reasonable pick for Orlando. Because, like, at the end of the day, everybody needs a number one creator. So if you think that's who that guy is, then you take him. I mean, I know they drafted Jalen Suggs last year, but like, you can just take another guy if you think he's the best player. If they thought Ivey was the best guy, they should take Ivey. That's just what it is. I don't care about Suggs being there. I don't care about anything else. Take the best player. If it's Paolo, it's Paolo. If it's Jabari, it's Jabari. Like, it's those four guys are all reasonable enough for me. And the same thing, like there's also the question about like they have Wendell Carter and John Isaac, and it's like I don't care. Just, if you want Chet, take Chet.
Wendell Carter is not a thing.
He's good.
Good. He's a fine basketball player, but like I'm not like
he's not why you don't take number one.
Yeah, I'm not like holding my breath. Not going to take Chet, but Jabari Smith is interesting.
They're all really good in different ways.
Yeah, I think they're just all different basketball players. So you're not a Paolo guy? You're not a Paolo?
I like Paolo. No, I've actually been a little bit trending upward on Paolo. I think his passing is like really, really good, and he's going to be a good player. In fact, if you ask me like who the best player is now, it's probably Paolo. I just don't know about his defense, to be honest.
I don't know about it.
And his jump shot. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like,
yeah,
I think because of his passing, I don't worry as much about his burst. Because he's great. Like I think he can be like a more of like an older Blake Griffin kind of hub guy. Like when Blake wasn't a nuclear athlete anymore, like in late Detroit and was still really good, like that kind of player. But I don't think that upside wise, I think both Chet and Jabari have higher upside than Paolo does. Just from skill, I think Chet because of his just raw tools and his defense are just crazy. His profile, if it works, and then Jabari's jump shot is just absurd. So if he becomes, and Jabari's a much, much, much better defender. So like, there's concerns about Chet and Jabari too, but I think I would have it right now. I would have it Chet Jabari Paolo, but Paolo is closer to two than he's closer to Jabari than he is to Chet.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in agreement with you. If I like Jaden Ivey more, I think I'd be more interested in a vacuum the Hawks trading up to get him, but
same.
There's just something about his game.
No, I like him. I just think I wish he was I've said this on a couple of podcasts, but like if he was a better shooter or a better passer.
Yeah.
But it's neither for me. Like, and he might be a good shooter eventually, and he's already a fine-ish shooter now, and he's improved a lot. But if I trusted the shot or the passing, I would be way, way, way in. And now it's like for me, having both of those be kind of question marks is not what you want from a 6'4" guard.
And I think he's a great athlete, but I don't know if he's nuclear in the same way that John Morant is, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know if
anybody is like, but he's up there, man. He's a crazy athlete. I'll say that about Ivy. Like, he's a crazy athlete. He is. And he's also bigger than John Morant. by like maybe an inch or two. He's bigger.
Plays the same type of defense, though. So
that is accurate. He does. All right, Tyler, we've done a lot as we are prone to do on this pod. I will have to have you back once the dust settles, and we'll talk about whatever the heck they do in the next couple of weeks. But until then, I appreciate you coming on. Please plug any anime or whatever you want to share at the end of the podcast.
Yeah, I want to plug F1. I think I'm turning into an F1 guy.
You and everybody else other than me, I guess.
Yeah, Team Mercedes. We had a good run. We had a good run this weekend.
We're going we on it. All right, cool.
Yeah, 3rd and 4th. So that's good. I don't know. We're not going to catch Red Bull, but we're doing well this year. Now I watched a little bit of golf. This past weekend. Not a lot. I don't know any of these dudes. They're just dudes to me, but it was good golf. It was funny. I think I caught at one point, it felt like everybody on the leaderboard, it was like, I mean, because the U.S. Open, I mean, you know more than me, but like the U.S. Open's kind of ridiculous. I think it was on Saturday, where the ball, like, or either Friday or Saturday, where the ball
it was Saturday
rolling off.
Yeah, Saturday, nobody did well on Saturday. Nobody played well on Saturday.
And it was like, how is everybody's hitting it into the rough?
That's the U.S. Open. It's always chaos. It's always chaos. Yeah, it's always complete chaos. And yeah, I'm not a golf expert, but I do watch a lot, and that tends to be the tournament that's the most entertaining in some ways because it's just like complete madness, like it was. The Masters is all about the visuals, of course, but the U.S. Open is insanity. So, golf talk at the end of the podcast. What were the odds of that? Not very high.
And watching the Braves, like I got super into sports this past weekend.
Your guy Dansby,
Money Dance. They gonna have to pay him. Somebody gonna have to pay him. I don't care who. They gonna have to run my boy his check. That's all that matters to me.
Cobb County's finest. There it is.
Marietta's finest. Yes, sir.
I know. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Tyler. I appreciate it, man. Please follow Tyler's content if he lets you on his locked account on Twitter. You can see it on the screen.
Jonesy2x4 on Twitter.
There you go. He might not let you, but he might let you eventually. I appreciate it, man. We'll talk again very soon. As for everybody else, I have no idea how many podcasts I'm going to do this week, but it might be like 10. I have no idea. We're already at 2. This is the 3rd. I have maybe another bonus coming, another draft night stuff, pre-draft stuff. Stay tuned, subscribe, tell a friend, and we'll see you next time.